Welcome to The Nameless. This story is not for everyone, but if you're still here, take a deep breath. Let's begin. I was standing in the bathroom, clutching a yellow Post-it note with trembling fingers. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, a sickly, flickering hum that seemed to drill right into my temples. I looked down at the paper. In neat block letters, it read, "Your name is Jacob. You are 28 years old. You live at 402 Oakwood Drive. Do not trust the mirror." I looked up. The man staring back at me had my hair, my eyes, and the small scar on my chin from a childhood bike accident. But behind the eyes, there was nothing. It wasn't the emptiness of confusion. It was a cold, flat stillness. The man in the glass didn't look confused. He looked like he was waiting for me to leave. I gripped the sink, my knuckles turning white. This was supposed to be part of the routine. The doctors called it dissociative amnesia with fugue states, or something equally complicated. To me, it just meant that every morning my hard drive was wiped clean. I'd wake up in a strange bed, in a strange room, with no memory of who I was or how I got there. The only lifeline I had was the system. The system was simple. Before I went to sleep, I wrote down everything important: my name, my job, my schedule, and what I did yesterday. I stuck the notes everywhere, on the bathroom mirror, on the fridge, on the front door. It was the only way to stitch my life back together day after day. But that morning, things felt wrong. The air in the apartment was heavy, stale, like the windows hadn't been opened in years. And that last sentence on the note, "Do not trust the mirror," I didn't remember writing that. It didn't look like the other instructions. The handwriting was jagged, rushed. The pen had pressed so hard it tore through the paper in 2 places. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I must have had a bad night, maybe a nightmare I couldn't remember. I splashed cold water on my face, avoiding eye contact with the reflection, and went into the kitchen. The apartment was a typical bachelor pad. Cheap furniture, a stack of unread mail on the counter, a laptop sitting closed on the coffee table. It felt familiar, but in a distant way, like walking into a house you lived in 10 years ago. I made coffee, relying on the sticky note pasted to the machine. 2 scoops, water to the line. As the machine gurgled, I started my morning tour, reading the walls. Feed the cat, Luna. Check the locks. Work starts at 9, remote login. I looked around for the cat. A small black cat was sitting on top of the refrigerator, staring down at me. She didn't meow. She didn't blink. She just watched. When I reached up to pet her, she hissed, a low, guttural sound that made the hair on my arms stand up, and scrambled away into the bedroom. "Okay," I muttered. I sat down at the laptop. Another note was stuck to the screen. password is Jake's Place 88. I typed it in. The screen flared to life. I expected to see work emails, spreadsheets, maybe a browser tab open to Netflix. Instead, the screen was filled with open windows, dozens of them. They were all search results for the same thing. How to tell if someone is living in your walls. Signs of carbon monoxide poisoning. Can memories be implanted? History of 402 Oakwood Drive deaths. I felt a cold drop of sweat slide down my back. I checked the browser history. These searches had been made between 3 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. I was supposed to be asleep then. I'm a heavy sleeper. I take medication for it. Another note on the nightstand reminded me of that. Take 1 pill at 10 p.m. If I took the pill, I shouldn't have been awake. And if I was awake, why didn't I remember it? I closed the laptop, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed fresh air. I grabbed my keys and went for the door. A bright pink note was stuck right over the deadbolt. Don't go outside. He's waiting. I froze. My hand hovered over the lock. The handwriting on this one was different. It wasn't the jagged scrawl from the bathroom, and it wasn't my usual neat block letters. It was cursive, elegant, flowing, almost feminine. I don't know anyone who writes like that. I peeled the note off the door and crunkled it up. Get a grip, Jacob, I whispered. You're scaring yourself. It's a prank. I unlocked the door and stepped out into the hallway. It was empty, just a long beige corridor with flickering lights. I walked to the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly. When the doors slid open, I stepped inside and hit the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, I saw the reflection in the polished metal of the elevator panel. I saw myself, but I wasn't looking at the buttons. In the reflection, I was looking directly at me, and I was smiling. I spun around. The elevator was empty. I was alone. I backed into the corner of the car, breathing hard. My mind was racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Hallucinations? Side effects of the medication? Maybe the carbon monoxide search was the only rational thing on that computer. I spent the day walking around the city. I didn't go to work. I didn't answer my phone. I just walked, trying to feel real. I bought a newspaper just to check the date. I looked at people's faces to make sure they weren't distorted. Everything seemed normal, except for the gnawing pit of dread in my stomach that told me I was in danger. When the sun started to set, I knew I had to go back. I had nowhere else to go. My wallet had an ID with the Oakwood address. My keys fit that door. If I wasn't Jacob, then I was nobody. I got back to the apartment around 8 p.m. The lights were off. I flipped the switch and the living room flooded with illumination. The apartment was different. It wasn't a mess exactly, but things had moved. The coffee cup I'd left on the counter was now on the floor, perfectly upright in the center of the rug. The laptop was open again. The chairs were facing the wall. And the notes. The yellow sticky notes were gone, all of them. The walls, the fridge, the mirrors, bare. In their place were new notes. These were blue. I walked over to the one stuck to the television. I pulled it off. The handwriting was mine, but it looked old, shaky. "He is lying to you." I turned to the kitchen. Another blue note on the fridge. "You didn't write the yellow notes." I ran to the bathroom. The mirror was clean, no residue, no instructions, just me and the glass. I leaned in close, examining my face. My eyes looked tired, rimmed with red. I touched my cheek. The reflection touched its cheek. I blinked. It blinked. "I," whispered. The reflection didn't answer. It just mimicked my fear. I went back into the living room. I needed to find the pills. If I could just sleep, maybe this would reset. Maybe I'd wake up tomorrow and the yellow notes would be back and this nightmare would be over. I went into the bedroom. The bottle of pills was on the nightstand, but it was empty. Next to the empty bottle was a single blue note. "Stay awake." I sat on the edge of the bed, putting my head in my hands. The silence of the apartment was deafening. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of a clock in the hallway, the distant traffic outside. And then I heard something else. Breathing. It was soft, rhythmic, and coming from the closet. I stared at the closet door. It was slightly ajar. Just a crack of darkness visible. The breathing was slow, deliberate. It wasn't the cat. Luna was curled up on the windowsill, asleep. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. I grabbed the heavy brass lamp from the nightstand. I moved toward the closet, inch by inch. The floorboards creaked under my weight. The breathing stopped the moment the floor creaked. I reached out, grabbed the handle, and yanked the door open. Empty, just clothes hanging on the rack, shirts, jackets, a few pairs of jeans. I pushed the clothes aside, checking the back. Nothing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Then I saw it. On the back wall of the closet, hidden behind the hanging coats, the drywall was covered in writing. Not on paper, written directly on the wall in black marker. Thousands of words, overlapping, frantic, messy. I used the light from my phone to read them. Day 4. I found a camera in the vent. I didn't put it there. Day 12. The notes are changing. I write "buy milk" and it changes to "buy poison." Day 28. I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. I think I went outside. Day 45. I saw him today. He looks like me, but he's not me. I scanned down the wall, reading the descent into madness. And then, near the bottom, written in large, bold strokes, "It's not amnesia. He takes over when you sleep. He's eating your life." I stumbled back, dropping the lamp. It crashed to the floor, the bulb shattering. In the sudden darkness, the only light came from the street lamps outside, filtering through the blinds. I backed out of the bedroom, my heart pounding so hard my vision blurred. I needed to get out. I needed to leave this apartment and never come back. I reached the front door and grabbed the handle. It was locked. I fumbled with the deadbolt, but it wouldn't turn. It was jammed. I tried the chain, but it was welded shut. "No," I whimpered. I turned around to face the apartment. The shadows seemed to stretch, reaching for me. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the block. I stood in the corner of the living room, weapon raised, waiting. Hours passed. My eyes grew heavy. The exhaustion was a physical weight, pulling me down. I fought it. I pinched my arm. I bit my lip until it bled. Stay awake. Stay awake. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. I jumped, nearly dropping the knife. I pulled the phone out of my pocket. It was a video message, sent from my own number. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button. I didn't want to see it, but I had to know. I pressed play. The video was dark at first. Then a face moved into the light. It was me, but it wasn't the me holding the phone. The man in the video was sitting in this very living room, on the couch. The timestamp on the video was from yesterday afternoon, while I was out walking. "Hello, Jacob," the man in the video said. His voice was calm, smooth. "I see you found the closet. That's unfortunate." He leaned forward, staring into the camera lens. "You're confused. You think you're the owner of this body. You think you're the one living this life. But you're not. You're the glitch." He smiled, and it was the same cold smile I had seen in the elevator reflection. "I'm the one who writes the notes, Jacob. I write them to keep you in line, to keep you playing your part for the few hours a day you're awake. But you're getting resistant. You're starting to remember things you shouldn't." The man in the video picked up a yellow pad of sticky notes and a pen. "So, we have to start over. Tonight, when you fall asleep, and you will fall asleep, I'm not going to write you any notes for tomorrow. No name, no address, no instructions. When the sun comes up, you won't be Jacob anymore. You'll be nothing, a blank slate." The video ended. I stared at the black screen. The silence in the room was absolute. I looked at the knife in my hand. It felt heavy, useless. I looked at the door, still sealed shut. My eyelids were dropping. My limbs felt like they were filled with concrete. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a crushing wave of chemically induced sleep. I realized then that I had made coffee this morning. 2 scoops, water to the line. I hadn't checked the canister. I hadn't checked what I was actually drinking. I slumped down against the wall, sliding to the floor. The knife clattered out of my hand. I tried to reach for it, but my arm wouldn't obey. I looked across the room. In the dim light, I saw the reflection in the darkened window. It wasn't mimicking me anymore. I was slumped on the floor, but the reflection was standing up. It was watching me. I tried to speak, to scream, but only a soft groan came out. The darkness was closing in from the edges of my vision. I grabbed the nearest thing to me, a stray piece of paper and a pen I had dropped earlier. I had to write something, anything, something to warn the next version of me, something to fight him. My hand moved sluggishly, tracing letters I could barely see. Run. He is you. Don't sleep. The pen slipped from my fingers. My head tipped back against the wall. The last thing I saw was my reflection in the window, stepping closer, pressing its hand against the glass from the other side. I closed my eyes. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting warm stripes across the duvet. I stretched, feeling a deep, restful calm. I sat up and looked around. The room was clean, tidy. No clutter. I got out of bed and walked to the bathroom. I felt good, refreshed. I looked in the mirror. A familiar face looked back. Clear eyes, a small scar on the chin. I smiled, and the reflection smiled back instantly. "Good morning," I said to myself. I walked into the kitchen. The coffee machine was ready to go. I pressed the button and hummed a tune as it brewed. On the counter, there was a single yellow sticky note. On the counter. Enjoy your day. I smiled. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash, covering the frantic, scribbled blue note that lay at the bottom of the bin. I grabbed my coffee and walked to the window. It was going to be a beautiful day. I didn't need notes to tell me who I was. I knew exactly who I was. And Jacob? He was gone.